Will COVID-19 measures be relaxed? Minister Lawrence Wong says we can expect an update soon.
One of Singapore's most popular wet markets reopens after 2 weeks, but it's not quite business as usual.
And on day one of his trial, Briton Benjamin Glynn claims the charges don't apply to him as he's sovereign. Welcome to The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Olivia Quay.
I'm Haryanto Diman. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode. In a Facebook post today, Finance Minister Lawrence Wong said he and his fellow COVID-19 Task Force co-chairs will be giving an update on Singapore's situation soon.
It follows his statement in Parliament on July the 26th that Singapore will review some restrictions in early August, the midpoint of this Phase 2 heightened alert period.
Accompanied by a picture of someone holding a Singapore flag in Limbang, Mr. Wong wrote, "The pandemic has, quote, shown us what sets Singapore apart. Our unity and community are the backbone of our strength."
In an earlier post, Mr. Wong also said over 38,400 tenants and owner-occupiers will receive funds directly from the government tomorrow, 2 weeks ahead of schedule. The rental support is equivalent to a half month of rent for the period of May 14th to the 29th.
Nee Soon Town Council had earlier said it would waive service and conservancy charges and temporary occupation license fees for affected stallholders when Chong Pang Market was forced to close for 2 weeks. It reopened today but to thin crowds, a contrast to the neighbourhood centre outside which was bustling with activity.
Hague Road Market and Food Centre was scheduled to reopen today as well, but most stalls were still shut when our Straits Times colleagues visited this morning. A stall owner told them that it will officially open on Saturday, with stall holders cleaning and disinfecting their stalls today and tomorrow.
The 2-week no-visit rule kicked in today at all hospital wards, but people were still seen at several hospitals. Most of those were there for outpatient treatment.
At Singapore General Hospital, Tan Tock Seng and KK Women's and Children's Hospital, our colleagues saw only a few people at the ward registration counters.
A TTSH spokesman said it had communicated the change in visiting policy to all its patients and their families.
While over at KKH, there are signs to remind ward visitors of the new rules, plus at least one staff member was stationed at every entry point to the wards.
From hospitals to hotels, and as at yesterday, more than 90 hotels here have served as isolation facilities, a jump from around 70 back in May.
According to the National Development Ministry, since March last year, these hotels at some point have been used as government quarantine facilities for close contacts or facilities for incoming travellers to serve their SHN.
Data from the Health Ministry showed that as at yesterday, around 14,000 people are currently under quarantine. 5,000 of them are serving it in government facilities.
Here's a quick update on Singapore's vaccination progress. With National Day around the corner, according to MOH, as at August the 3rd, 64% of the population have been fully vaccinated. This translates to over 3.56 million people.
On the first day of his trial, Benjamin Glynn, captured on video not wearing a mask on an MRT train back in May, claimed that court charges don't apply to him as his sovereign. The unrepresented man also said that he has a legal counsel who turned out to be his bailer and identified as Abdul Rashid Abdul Rahman.
The prosecution told the court that Mr. Abdul Rashid was not an advocate and solicitor at the Supreme Court of Singapore, with the judge also saying Mr. Abdul Rashid couldn't represent anyone in Singapore as he had not been called to the bar here.
Now, lots of chatter online following news that safe distancing enforcement officers can enter, inspect and search premises, including residences, without a warrant. This in order to check whether COVID-19 regulations are being complied with.
Just this week, actor Nick Mikal posted videos on Instagram questioning why URA and police officers could enter his home on July 31st without a warrant or court order.
According to the law, the safe distancing enforcement officers were acting under Section 35(5) of the Covid-19 Temporary Measures Act. And read with this section of the Infectious Diseases Act, they have the legal right to enter and inspect any premise to enforce any control order without the need to obtain a warrant.
The Straits Times' coverage of this has garnered over 800 comments on Facebook. While many netizens were surprised and not supportive of the powers these safe distancing enforcement officers have, some, like Ang Ang, feel such enforcement is needed to control the current COVID-19 situation.
Now, others like Cecilia Lim were concerned about safety in the event these legal rights to enter one's home without a warrant are being abused by potential scammers.
While her comment was shared, the same sentiment was echoed by Wesley Gunter, who added that he wants, quote, to hear the point of view from legal professionals.
Let's address these issues with lawyer Joshua Tong, an associate with Calco Law. Welcome to the show, Joshua. If people claiming to be safe distancing officers show up at my door, is there anything I can do to verify their identity, Joshua? Which agencies can they be from?
Yes, let's take the questions one at a time. Yes, you can ask the safe distancing officers for verification. According to the NEA frequently asked questions, you may request for verifications, and how you would identify an officer would be from their corporate attire, their staff pass, their lanyard, or some may have seen the red armband. So yes, there's nothing stopping you from asking for verification before letting the officer in. The second question is a bit trickier because the question is, which agencies can they be from? There really isn't an answer to that because these enforcement officers can actually be taken from many different public agencies. So that brings about some difficulties because how do you identify the legitimacy of the officer who's at your doorstep? Because there's no fixed agency, for example, the NEA or URA. There can be officers from other agencies that are legitimately checking your house for compliance with the control orders. So that brings about some, I would say, difficulties, whereas you compare it to a situation with the police or even MAS, where, the public is very clear that these agencies have powers to come into your home in certain situations. Yeah.
Well, when these officers, they show up at my door, can I deny them entry on any grounds?
The short answer I would say to that is no, because they have the right to enter into the premise to check whether or not you are complying with the rules. While there is no fixed standard, at least not explicitly mentioned under the law, what I would imply is that they need to be exercising their powers in good faith and with reasonable care. And that really isn't that hard to meet. So I would answer that you shouldn't deny them entry because if you do not comply with their directions, you are actually liable to a fine or an imprisonment if you do not have any reasonable excuse. So I really would caution people to, really think twice before denying any officer entry to your home.
Joshua, so let's say if I feel that safe distancing officers have overstepped their boundaries or are acting inappropriately while on duty, what can I do within my rights?
The safe distancing officers are held to the same standards as all civil servants. So they are not some unique group that are exempt from liability. So take, for example, police officers. They are all held to the same standards, safe distancing officers. And if you have cause to believe that they are, acting inappropriately or overstepping their boundaries, there's nothing, firstly, stopping you from making a police report. And in the police report, if they are really acting inappropriately or overstepping their boundaries, you can state that you have reason to believe that an officer is harassing you. And that is caught under the Protection from Harassment Act, or even any other offenses that is caught under the Penal Code. Or in the alternative, even if their conduct is not criminal, there's nothing stopping a member of the public to pursue any civil remedies against an officer, for example, trespass or damage caused to the premises, if they can show that the officer did not exercise his powers to enter the premise in good faith and without reasonable care. But what exactly is good faith and reasonable care is highly fact-centric, and it really depends on the facts of the case.
Well, Joshua, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. We've been speaking with lawyer Joshua Tong, an associate with Kelco Law LLC.
Team Singapore athletes not in action today, but here are a couple of perfect performances at the Olympics. First, Keegan Palmer scored 2 brilliantly executed runs in the men's park skateboarding finals, landing him the win and Australia's first ever Olympic gold medal in the sport. The 18-year-old led the pack as early as his first run, where he scored a massive 94.04, which no one could surpass even after 3 rounds, until he did it himself in his final round, scoring 95.83.
In another display of sports excellence, China's Chuan Hongchan had 2 dives with perfect scores from all the judges for her to secure the gold in the women's 10-meter platform. The youngest athlete representing China in Tokyo, the 14-year-old scored a total of 466.20 points, shattering the previous Olympic record.
The men's 10-meter platform starts tomorrow with debutant Jonathan Chan representing Team Singapore. Now, for a complete coverage, visit our microsite straitstimes.com/Tokyo Olympics. Now, most, if not all of us, haven't been able to travel for the past year and a half. And tourism boards around the world are trying to keep their destinations relevant to leisure travelers like us with fun destination trailers.
That's right. Well, journalist Sarah R Stanley has highlighted 7 of them, including Singapore's. So Sarah, hi, welcome to the show. Out of the 7, which is your favorite and why? I should mention that my personal favorite is Switzerland because, you know, of the star power in that video, but I want to hear what your favorite is.
Right, okay, so I'd say all 7 actually have their own concepts that they're kind of bouncing off from, I think, Hong Kong and Australia's tourism boards. They have a take on ASMR videos that was really good. They did a great job of immersing us into their natural landscapes, to trailers that kind of play on skits and short films, which is what you mentioned just now, Switzerland and then Norway's. But for me, I think Iceland's trailer really takes the cake in all the right ways. The song, I think it was titled Sweatpants Boots. It's not just catchy, but the lyrics also speak to all of us who haven't really been able to travel for leisure for more than a year now. And then on top of all that, selling Iceland as a travel destination, they've also tied the trailer to a campaign that offers to fashion boots out of sweatpants, which I think they said was something like a COVID-19 staple nowadays. So I think the pop-up store for this that was in Iceland's capital is closed now, but it was a really innovative freebie that suits our times, and it was wrapped in a really nice, catchy little music video. And it's more than 4 million views, I think, right now.
And how did Singapore's destination trailer compare? What did it do right, Sarah?
Right, so again, it's a completely different concept. So it's kind of targeting locals, like Singapore rediscovers, right? So what we're doing is like we're rediscovering places in Singapore like Kampong Glam, Pulau Ubin, Chinatown. And by reinventing these experiences for domestic audience and offering perspective to global audience, they're kind of keeping Singapore top of mind. But what it did differently, as in the Iceland trailer, is that it was a music video, so naturally it's a bit more catchy. They had a freebie attached to the campaign, and it resonated a little more with our current experience living without overseas travel and like in the midst of a pandemic, right? In the midst of a pandemic, sorry. So I'd say for the local audience, for Singapore Rediscovers, the message is there to make the most out of our landmarks and the activities that we have now. And if that message gets across, it's already kind of like half a battle won. But in the meantime, until travel resumes, Iceland's trailer, along with every other destination trailer, will probably have to do the job of sustaining our adventurous spirit.
Thanks, Sarah. You can check out her story on straitstimes.com for all 7 videos, including Singapore, South Korea, Norway and Switzerland.
Well, National Day is just 4 days away, and for that little bit of local flavor, Netflix is adding more Singapore titles, movies, series, animation and documentaries just in time for the upcoming long weekend. Journalist Jan Lee is here to share more with us. So Jan, out of the array that's available on Netflix, which are your must-watches?
I haven't watched the whole range of titles they've added. They've added a lot. There's Wet Season from Anthony Chen. There's Tan Pin Pin's documentaries In Time to Come and Singapore Gaga. There's, the Joanne Pei series, Last Madame, Mr. Unbelievable, Judgment Day, a lot of things. So there are a lot of choices for you here. Personally, the ones that I've watched Wet Season, which I really enjoyed, is Anthony Chen's second movie in what he calls his growing up trilogy. So it also stars Yeo Yan Yan and Ko Jia-le from Ilo Ilo in 2013. Wet Season is about a Chinese teacher who develops like a very special bond with this boy that she teaches in school, and like the sort of emotional turmoil that she's going on in her own life. And it won Yeo Yan Yan the Best Actress Award at the Golden Horse Awards in 2019. So I thought it was quite a I thought it was very atmospheric, and I thought it filmed Singapore in a very beautiful manner. So that's why I really enjoyed it. Dramas wise, I've watched a little bit of Last Madame. I've watched a little bit of Tito Dao, which is a Channel 5 drama about street wayang. So it's about like street opera. It's actually adapted from a play of the same name, if I'm not wrong, by our local playwright Goh Boon Teck, about his own mother, Ah Chiam, who was a Chinese street opera performer. So I quite enjoyed the few episodes of the drama I saw when I was reviewing it. So it's a little bit of a period drama, a little bit of local flavor of, you see like Singapore in the past and how it's changed and how that has impacted the street wayang community. So a lot of choices here. Personally, I'm quite interested in checking out Tan Pin Pin's documentaries. I haven't really had a chance to watch any of her movies, and in particular, I think Singapore Gaga seems quite interesting because it's from what I've heard, it's quite a whimsical take on the oral soundscape of Singapore. So it's like street buskers, musicians and so on. So yeah, I think there's actually a lot of choices, this weekend. If you are logging onto Netflix, of course you will be logging onto Netflix. It's a long weekend. So for, if you want to, find out a little bit more about what's on the platform, you can always go check out. I think if I'm not wrong, Netflix has a little bit of a local curation in their streaming site, so you can always go check that out.
Well, thank you so much, Jan. As always, that was journalist Jan Lee.
Well, tons more ideas on how you can make the most out of this long weekend, as well as a Phase 2 heightened alert over at Life's Stay Home Guide. For more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com.
And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on A Big Story.